In the ancient pages of the Bible, we uncover stories not just of faith and divine promises, but of deeply rooted conflicts that continue to impact the world today. These stories carry us back to moments when God's words defined the destiny of nations, shaping the enduring identity of entire peoples. Among the most complex relationships is that of the Jewish and Arab people, two groups bound by a lineage that stretches back to Abraham, yet seemingly locked in an endless cycle of rivalry and struggle. What lies beneath this historic conflict? How did a family story evolve into a saga that would span centuries, shaping both ancient and modern history? To understand, we must begin with Abraham, a man whose faith set him apart, even as he led a life grounded in the values and challenges of his time. In the book of Genesis, Abraham encounters God in a profound way, receiving promises that would carry far beyond his lifetime. In Genesis 12:2, God tells Abraham, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." These words, spoken in the midst of a vast Mesopotamian desert, became a beacon of hope and expectation for Abraham and his descendants, symbolizing not only a lineage but an eternal covenant. Yet Abraham's journey was not an easy one. He and his wife Sarah faced significant challenges, particularly with regard to having children. In their culture, a family's honor and legacy were deeply tied to the birth of descendants, and the couple's years of infertility weighed heavily on them. As time passed, Sarah's anguish over her barrenness grew. Each month that passed without a child deepened her despair, leading her to question how God's promise could ever be fulfilled. In a world where fertility held cultural and social importance, Sarah's inability to conceive cast a shadow over her life and her marriage. Driven by a desire to fulfill God's promise in any way she could, Sarah decided to act. Inspired by the customs of the time, she suggested a solution that would allow her to build a family through another woman. Sarah approached Abraham with a proposal. He should have a child with her Egyptian servant, Hagar, in hopes that their offspring might carry forward the divine legacy. It was a moment of tension and desperation, one that would set the stage for generations of conflict. Sarah's suggestion, though culturally acceptable, revealed the limits of human solutions in matters of divine timing. Abraham agreed, perhaps out of love for Sarah or simply the weight of years without children. But this choice, driven by human impatience, would have consequences that neither Abraham nor Sarah could foresee, altering the course of their lives and the lives of countless descendants. Abraham's decision to take Hagar as a concubine brought immediate consequences, shaping dynamics within his household in unexpected ways. When Hagar conceived, a new tension settled over the family. What had once seemed like a practical solution now revealed itself as a source of rivalry and discord. Sarah, who had initially suggested the arrangement, soon felt the sting of jealousy as Hagar's pregnancy became a constant reminder of her own inability to conceive. Hagar, no longer simply a servant, now bore a child connected to Abraham's legacy. Her elevated position created a complex emotional atmosphere in the household. As Hagar's pregnancy advanced, her sense of status subtly changed. She began to view Sarah with a mixture of disdain and superiority, aware of the unique position she held as the mother of Abraham's child. Sarah, in turn, grew resentful, feeling humiliated by the very situation she had orchestrated. The friction between the two women escalated, showcasing the fragile nature of human intervention in divine matters. What had begun as a solution to Sarah's pain became a source of continuous conflict, Sarah's bitterness grew into anger, and unable to cope with the rivalry, she began mistreating Hagar. Caught in a situation beyond her control, Hagar found herself in a hostile environment, bearing the brunt of Sarah's frustration. In a moment of desperation, Hagar decided to flee. She escaped into the desert, seeking refuge from the oppressive circumstances. Alone in the wilderness, she wrestled with the reality of her situation. Pregnant and isolated, Hagar's fear and uncertainty weighed heavily on her. She found herself caught between her role as a mother and the burden of estrangement. It was here, in the vast, barren landscape, that she reached a breaking point, contemplating her fate and the life of her unborn child. In this moment of isolation and despair, Hagar encountered an angel of the Lord. The angel's presence brought a message of hope and direction, transforming Hagar's desolation into a sacred moment of divine intervention. The angel instructed her to return to Abraham's household, promising her that her child would grow into a mighty nation. This encounter was not only a sign of God's compassion, but a reminder that even those who feel cast aside are seen and heard by Him. Through this message, Hagar came to understand that she was not alone in her suffering. God had a plan for her and her child. She returned to Abraham's home with a renewed sense of purpose and strength, carrying within her the divine assurance of Ishmael's future. The desert, once a place of despair, had become a symbol of divine care and protection. This experience transformed Hagar from a mere servant into a mother with a mission, armed with the knowledge that her son's life held promise and significance beyond what anyone had anticipated. Back in Abraham's household, Hagar's return did not erase the existing tensions. Nevertheless, she now carried with her a sense of divine purpose and strength. When Ishmael was born, he represented not only the fulfillment of Hagar's personal journey, but also a part of Abraham's lineage and promise. His name, meaning God hears, was a testament to God's awareness of Hagar's suffering and His compassion for her plight. The birth of Ishmael was marked by a mixture of joy and apprehension. Abraham embraced his son with happiness, as Ishmael embodied the beginning of his legacy. Despite the joy surrounding his arrival, the household continued to feel the strain of Sarah and Hagar's fraught relationship. Sarah, still grappling with her unfulfilled desire for a child, began to view Ishmael as a symbol of the life she could not give to Abraham. Her initial hope for fulfillment through Hagar's son quickly turned into resentment. In time, this resentment grew into outright hostility. Sarah's inability to accept Hagar and Ishmael as part of the family dynamic led to an atmosphere of jealousy and mistrust. Ishmael, even as an infant, became a focus of this tension. Hagar, now a mother, struggled to navigate the environment of insecurity and rivalry. She faced emotional challenges as Sarah's attitude toward her and Ishmael remained cold, if not hostile. Despite the discord, God's blessing on Ishmael was evident. He grew up strong, learning to adapt to the desert environment that would become his home. Abraham continued to care for him, recognizing Ishmael as his firstborn son. Ishmael, therefore, symbolized a unique relationship between human actions and divine promises. Though he was not the child of the primary covenant, his life held meaning, and his future was filled with purpose. Years later, when Abraham was an old man, God appeared once more, renewing his covenant and expanding his promise to include a son born to Sarah. This announcement brought joy but also confusion. Ishmael, now a young boy, held a special place in Abraham's heart, and it was difficult to envision how a new child might change the family dynamic. However, God reassured Abraham that his promise extended to Ishmael as well, saying, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation." This promise underscored that while Ishmael would not inherit the covenant directly, he was not forgotten by God. Ishmael would become a father to 12 tribes, securing his place in history and affirming God's love and faithfulness. This commitment to Ishmael highlighted a deeper reality within God's plan. He does not overlook or abandon his children, even when circumstances seem complex or unfavorable. Ishmael's future was set. He would be blessed and grow into a great nation. In this way, God acknowledged the family's unique situation and his willingness to work within the complexities of human life. Ishmael, though born outside the covenant's primary lineage, would still fulfill a promise, demonstrating God's ability to bring hope and purpose to all lives, regardless of their origins. Years passed, and finally, the long-awaited moment arrived. Sarah, who had endured years of barrenness and struggled with doubt, miraculously conceived and gave birth to a son. They named him Isaac, which means laughter, capturing the joy and astonishment Sarah felt. This name held a dual meaning. It symbolized the joyous fulfillment of God's promise, and the laughter of disbelief Sarah once held, now transformed into laughter of faith and gratitude. Isaac's birth marked a turning point, not only for Abraham and Sarah, but also for the unfolding of God's plan. He represented the divine covenant through which the future nation of Israel would be established. For Abraham and Sarah, Isaac was more than just a son. He was a tangible sign of God's faithfulness, a miracle that reaffirmed their hope in a promise that once seemed out of reach. Yet, as much as this was a time of celebration, the arrival of Isaac also deepened the tension within the family. Ishmael, now a young boy, watched as his half-brother took center stage, realizing that Isaac's role in the family was different from his own. While Ishmael held a unique blessing from God, he was not the chosen child through whom the covenant would unfold. This distinction, though unspoken, became increasingly clear as Isaac grew, shaping the family's dynamics and foreshadowing the struggles that lay ahead. Sarah's joy in Isaac quickly turned into a fierce protectiveness. She began to see Ishmael not as a son of her husband, but as a potential threat to her own child's inheritance and position. This fear festered, culminating in a moment that would redefine the relationship between Hagar and Sarah, as well as between Ishmael and Isaac. During a family celebration for Isaac, Sarah observed Ishmael mocking the younger child. Although the nature of Ishmael's actions remains open to interpretation, it was enough to stir Sarah's protective instincts. Fearing for Isaac's future, Sarah demanded that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. She declared, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." This command forced Abraham into a difficult position. He deeply loved both sons and was troubled by the thought of casting Ishmael out. However, God intervened, reassuring Abraham that while Isaac would carry the covenant, Ishmael would not be abandoned. God promised that Ishmael would also become the father of a great nation, reflecting his enduring commitment to both sons. Heartbroken, yet trusting in God's promise, Abraham prepared provisions for Hagar and Ishmael, sending them into the wilderness. The separation was painful, filled with uncertainty and sorrow. Hagar once again found herself in a situation of hardship, this time more daunting as she faced the vast desert alone with her young son. But now, with years of faith and resilience built up, she clung to the divine promises spoken over Ishmael's life. As Hagar and Ishmael ventured into the desert, their limited supplies quickly dwindled, and despair began to set in. Hagar, overcome by exhaustion and fear for her son's life, placed Ishmael under a bush, unable to watch him suffer. In this moment of complete vulnerability, she cried out to God. Her desperation echoed through the wilderness, a mother's plea for mercy and intervention. God responded. An angel of the Lord called to Hagar from heaven, reminding her of his promise to make Ishmael into a great nation. He reassured her that God had not forgotten them and directed her to a nearby well of water, providing the life-saving sustenance they desperately needed. This divine provision was not only a literal source of refreshment, but a reaffirmation of God's faithfulness. The well of water served as a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that God remains near, even in the most desolate of places. After Hagar and Ishmael's deliverance in the desert, they began to rebuild their lives. Ishmael grew into a resilient and skilled young man, shaped by the hardships he faced alongside his mother. The desert, a place of survival and solitude, became both a home and a training ground, teaching him the resilience needed to endure the challenges of a nomadic life. Hagar, having experienced divine intervention, was strengthened in her faith and commitment to protect and nurture Ishmael. She taught him to navigate the harsh desert landscape and rely on his own skills, instilling in him a spirit of independence and strength. The vast wilderness became a place where Ishmael learned essential skills for survival. Early on, he exhibited a natural aptitude for archery, and his talent grew as he practiced in the arid terrain. His proficiency with the bow and arrow set him apart, and over time, he gained a reputation as a formidable hunter. Genesis 21:20-21 notes that God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. This simple statement carries profound meaning. Ishmael's skill with the bow and his life in the desert underscored both his resilience and God's continued presence. The phrase, "God was with the boy," served as a testament that though Ishmael's life was shaped by hardship, he was not abandoned. He remained under God's watchful eye, his path guided even through the isolation of the wilderness. As he matured, Hagar realized that Ishmael would need companionship and stability beyond the bonds they shared. In an important decision rooted in her cultural background, she sought an Egyptian wife for him. This choice connected Ishmael to his mother's lineage, strengthening the ties between him and the Egyptian heritage. This marriage would not only bring Ishmael a partner, but also cement an enduring link between Abraham's bloodline and Egypt, a relationship that would echo throughout generations. In the years that followed, Ishmael established his own family. His descendants would form the foundation of 12 distinct tribes, fulfilling God's promise that he would be the father of a great nation. Each of these tribes, carrying unique traditions and customs, became a part of the rich tapestry of Middle Eastern heritage. Ishmael's life in the desert and his ability to form a family of tribes demonstrated his resilience and resourcefulness, underscoring the strength he drew from his heritage. Ishmael's 12 sons, who became tribal leaders, carried forward their father's legacy. Known as the Ishmaelites, these tribes inhabited areas across the Middle East, blending nomadic culture with the skills and values they had inherited. The Ishmaelites thrived, and their strength and resilience became well known across the region, marking them as descendants of Ishmael and Hagar. Ishmael's lineage became an integral part of the cultural and historical landscape, serving as a living testament to God's promise that Ishmael would indeed become a great nation. The 12 tribes formed a lasting heritage that would shape the Arab culture and influence the region's development for centuries to come. These tribes, though separate from the covenant established through Isaac, bore witness to God's faithfulness and his ability to fulfill promises across different lineages and peoples. Through Ishmael's descendants, a unique cultural and historical identity emerged, forming a bridge between the Egyptian and nomadic traditions. Ishmael, as the patriarch of these tribes, embodied the strength and adaptability of the desert, qualities that would pass down through the generations. His life story, though marked by trials and separation, ultimately showcased a lineage blessed with resilience, independence, and purpose. As Ishmael's lineage expanded and Isaac's family began to grow, the brothers led separate lives. Yet, despite the complex family dynamics and the tension that had long marked their relationship, there remained a connection rooted in shared heritage and their father, Abraham. This bond would come to the forefront during a significant and emotional moment, the death of their father. In Genesis 25:9, we find a poignant scene of reconciliation and unity. Upon Abraham's death, both Ishmael and Isaac came together to bury him in the cave of Machpelah, located near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite. This field and cave held special meaning, as it was Abraham's chosen burial site for his wife Sarah, and a place he had personally acquired, making it sacred ground for his family. This gathering of Ishmael and Isaac symbolized more than a shared duty. It represented the overcoming of past rivalries and an acknowledgement of their bond as sons of the same father. Although they had grown up under very different circumstances, Abraham's death brought them together, setting aside the tensions that had defined their family history. Their act of honoring their father demonstrated a respect for their shared bloodline and a willingness to unite, even if only briefly, in remembrance of him. For both men, this burial was not only an act of familial responsibility, but also an opportunity for reflection. Abraham had left behind a legacy of faith and divine promises, and this moment allowed Ishmael and Isaac to collectively honor the man who had been chosen by God and who had fathered two significant lineages. The act of coming together symbolized a fleeting yet powerful glimpse of reconciliation, a vision of the unity that God ultimately desires for all humanity. While the Bible does not elaborate on the emotional exchanges that may have taken place between Ishmael and Isaac during this time, their shared act of burying Abraham speaks volumes. Despite the years of separation and the differences that defined them, they were drawn together by the common thread of their father's legacy. In that moment, they stood as Abraham's sons, fulfilling his final rites and laying him to rest in a way that respected his devotion to God's promises. This event serves as a reminder that even in families divided by conflict or misunderstandings, there are moments where unity and reconciliation become possible. Ishmael and Isaac, despite their divergent paths, shared a deep, if unspoken, understanding of the significance of their heritage. Abraham's death created a bridge between them, reminding both brothers of their shared history and the divine plan that had included both of them in distinct, meaningful ways. In the broader context of biblical history, this act of reconciliation foreshadowed the potential for peace and unity among Abraham's descendants. While Ishmael and Isaac represented two separate paths, their coming together hints at the possibility of harmony even amidst profound differences. Their story underscores the fact that God's promises and love extend beyond divisions, offering opportunities for reconciliation and unity. This brief moment of connection between Ishmael and Isaac illustrates a greater theme woven throughout Scripture: the importance of reconciliation and forgiveness, even when relationships are strained by past tensions. It reminds readers of the power of shared heritage and the peace that can emerge when individuals come together with a common purpose. The burial of Abraham symbolized a temporary but meaningful reunion, a glimpse of what could be if forgiveness and unity were prioritized over division. As Ishmael grew older, he became the father of 12 sons, each one destined to lead a tribe and play a significant role in the history of the Middle East. This legacy fulfilled the divine promise made to Ishmael that he would also father a great nation. In Genesis 17:20, God told Abraham, "I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation." This promise reflected God's intention to bless Ishmael. Despite his role as the son born outside of the covenant established with Isaac, Ishmael's 12 sons became leaders of their own tribes, known as the Ishmaelites. Each tribe carried forward a piece of their father's spirit: resilient, strong, and adaptable. Ishmael's descendants spread throughout the region, making a life for themselves in the deserts and maintaining a unique cultural identity that distinguished them from other tribes. The names of Ishmael's sons are listed in Genesis 25:13 through 15, and each represents a branch of Ishmael's lineage, extending his influence far beyond his own life. The Ishmaelite tribes became known for their strength, resilience, and skill in adapting to the harsh conditions of the desert. Their lifestyle required courage and resourcefulness, values that Ishmael instilled in his children. They traveled across vast territories, known for their trading and mercantile skills. Living primarily as nomads, they adapted to the fluctuating demands of desert life, developing deep knowledge of the land and creating lasting bonds with the territories they inhabited. This nomadic lifestyle not only connected the tribes to each other, but also exposed them to other cultures and peoples. Their mobility allowed them to establish trade routes and alliances, fostering connections that would become significant in the centuries to follow. These tribes built a reputation for their endurance, independence, and willingness to face challenges head-on. Ishmael's influence permeated through his descendants, as each tribe carried his legacy of resilience, self-reliance, and faith in God's providence. The story of Ishmael's descendants also highlights the fulfillment of God's promises. Despite being outside the covenant that God established with Isaac, Ishmael and his descendants were not forgotten. God's faithfulness extended to Ishmael, showing that his blessings and promises are far-reaching and inclusive. Ishmael's life journey, marked by struggles, survival, and growth, reflected the diversity and strength that would characterize his descendants for generations. In contrast, Isaac's lineage became associated primarily with the covenant promises that led to the formation of Israel. However, Ishmael's legacy as the father of 12 tribes illustrates God's ability to work through diverse paths, showing that his plans include many people, each fulfilling their unique role in the unfolding of divine history. Ishmael's descendants would go on to impact the cultural and historical landscape of the Middle East, influencing trade, politics, and interactions with surrounding nations. Through Ishmael's lineage, we see how God's promises extended beyond the covenant to include blessings of prosperity, influence, and continuity. His descendants serve as a reminder that God's provision and grace reach even those who may feel on the margins, offering purpose and significance in his overarching plan. The story of Ishmael and his 12 sons serves as a testament to God's faithfulness and the importance of heritage and legacy in the biblical narrative. In the midst of their differing paths and legacies, Ishmael and Isaac share one pivotal moment of unity: the burial of their father, Abraham. Despite the complex history that separated them, this act represents a powerful moment of reconciliation, transcending their individual roles and the family tensions that defined their early years. In Genesis 25:9, it's recorded, "His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite." The gathering of Ishmael and Isaac to honor Abraham illustrates a significant convergence, marking an end to their father's earthly journey and a moment of unity between his two sons. Abraham's life and legacy had set into motion a series of events that would affect generations, and though Ishmael and Isaac grew up under different circumstances, they shared the same father and a connection to his divine calling. This moment underscores a deep familial bond that neither time nor distance could sever completely. The burial itself, in the cave of Machpelah, a land Abraham purchased as a family burial site, serves as a symbolic gesture. It emphasizes the significance of family ties and the importance of reconciliation, even amidst long-standing divisions. Abraham's choice to secure this land, years before his death, signifies his vision for a unified legacy, one that would preserve his lineage's history and heritage. By coming together to honor Abraham, Ishmael and Isaac acknowledged that they were both heirs of a divine promise, each chosen by God for different paths and purposes. This act of unity has lasting implications beyond the physical act of laying Abraham to rest. It represents the possibility of reconciliation for the generations that follow, a reminder that even deeply rooted rivalries and divisions can find moments of peace. Though Ishmael and Isaac would continue to lead separate tribes with their own legacies, this single moment of harmony hinted at the potential for future unity. They each acknowledged Abraham's role in their lives, honoring his faith and his obedience to God's calling. The unity between Ishmael and Isaac at Abraham's burial is a profound reminder of the value of forgiveness, humility, and family. Though both were blessed by God in different ways, Isaac as the child of the covenant and Ishmael as the father of a great nation, their coming together shows a respect for the larger picture that God was weaving through Abraham's descendants. This moment invites us to reflect on the power of shared history and mutual respect, even amidst conflict, and the ways God's plan can transcend human divisions. Ultimately, the story of Ishmael and Isaac, from rivalry to reconciliation, provides valuable insights into the nature of God's promises and his desire for peace and unity. The Bible's message of forgiveness and reconciliation is woven throughout this narrative, illustrating that despite conflicts and misunderstandings, love and family connection have the potential to bridge divides. This momentary reunion between Ishmael and Isaac not only honored their father's memory, but also reflected the enduring value of family, a theme that echoes throughout biblical history. Following Abraham's death and the powerful moment of unity between his sons, Ishmael's life began to unfold in a new direction. As promised by God, Ishmael's legacy grew beyond him to form a vital part of the history of the Middle East, with his descendants becoming the patriarchs of 12 tribes. In Genesis 25:16, we find, "These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, listed in the order of their birth: Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Dumah, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of the 12 tribal rulers according to their settlements and camps. The tribes born from Ishmael's lineage spread across the region, establishing themselves in significant territories. Known as the Ishmaelites, these tribes grew into a large and influential people, leaving a lasting impact on the cultural and historical landscape of the Middle East. Each tribe carried its unique identity, customs, and traditions, shaping the rich and diverse tapestry of the Arab people. Ishmael's life, initially marked by hardship and rejection, ultimately fulfilled God's promise to make him the father of a great nation, underscoring the faithfulness of God's word and his attention to even the most overlooked or marginalized. The mention of 12 tribal leaders mirrors the formation of the 12 tribes of Israel that would emerge from Isaac's lineage. This parallel reveals a broader divine plan, in which each lineage would play a distinct yet complementary role in the unfolding history of God's people. The Ishmaelites, though separate from the Israelite nation, were not forgotten by God. They were blessed and given a purpose, signifying that God's plan extends beyond a single nation and embraces the diversity of the peoples he created. Ishmael's descendants developed a nomadic way of life, skilled in surviving the arid deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. They became traders, connecting cultures and facilitating the exchange of goods and ideas across vast distances. This trade network established the Ishmaelites as influential players in the economic and social systems of the ancient world. Their interactions with neighboring tribes and nations further diversified and enriched their culture, blending influences from Egypt, Canaan, and Mesopotamia. The legacy of Ishmael and his tribes goes beyond mere historical impact. It touches on the spiritual heritage shared between the descendants of Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael's lineage would eventually give rise to the Arab peoples, contributing to the foundation of civilizations and religions that continue to shape the world today. Within this legacy lies a reminder of God's provision and promise, demonstrating that even lives marked by difficulty and separation can bear significant blessings and purpose. The formation of the Ishmaelite tribes is a testament to God's inclusive love and faithfulness, even to those considered outsiders to the main narrative of the covenant. Ishmael's story, his struggles, and ultimate triumph offer a message of hope for those who may feel sidelined. His legacy is a reminder that no one is beyond God's love and promises, and that our stories, no matter how complex or painful, hold potential for blessing and influence far beyond our imagination. As Ishmael's 12 sons formed tribes and spread throughout the Arabian Peninsula, their presence marked the beginning of a profound cultural heritage that would influence generations to come. The Ishmaelites, each tribe distinct in name and tradition, cultivated a rich legacy through their customs, values, and desert lifestyle. Their influence reached beyond borders, impacting civilizations with whom they traded and interacted. Ishmael's legacy became foundational in establishing cultural identity and societal frameworks that would shape the Arab people and their traditions. Ishmael's life in the desert as a skilled archer and nomadic survivor exemplified the resilience and adaptability that would come to characterize his descendants. In Genesis 21:20, we read, "God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer." This description reflects more than mere survival skills. It illustrates a resourceful spirit that would permeate Ishmael's lineage. Life in the desert required courage, ingenuity, and a deep connection to the natural environment, all qualities that the Ishmaelites embraced and passed down through generations. Arab culture, deeply rooted in nomadic traditions, values honor, loyalty, and family bonds, reflecting the legacy of Ishmael and the life lessons learned in the harsh desert landscape. The importance of hospitality, a hallmark of Arab culture, likely finds its origins in the ancient practices of the Ishmaelites. The desert's challenging conditions demanded a strong sense of community and interdependence, as travelers and strangers relied on one another for survival. This cultural emphasis on hospitality grew from a necessity into a deeply held value, one that still defines the character of Arab societies today. In their role as traders, the Ishmaelites facilitated the exchange of goods and ideas across vast regions, linking different cultures and promoting the spread of knowledge. Their caravans, carrying spices, textiles, and precious goods, became crucial in bridging the Arabian Peninsula with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. Through these interactions, the Ishmaelites not only gained economic strength, but also absorbed diverse influences that enriched their own cultural tapestry. The Ishmaelite tribes, though descendants of a single lineage, were able to connect and coexist with other nations, underscoring the adaptability and openness of Ishmael's legacy. Historically, the Ishmaelites are also seen as early forebears of the Arab people. Arab identity traces its spiritual and ancestral heritage back to Ishmael, forming a bridge between the legacy of Abraham and the emerging Arab culture. This connection is celebrated across generations, particularly within Islamic tradition, where Ishmael is revered as a prophet and a model of submission to God's will. His story of perseverance, despite adversity and displacement, resonates deeply within Islamic teachings and reflects the virtues of patience, faith, and resilience, qualities that remain central to the Arab ethos. Ishmael's legacy is thus not only a historical one, but also a spiritual and cultural foundation that influenced the growth of Arab civilization. Through his descendants, Ishmael's story became a living narrative of God's promises fulfilled in unique and profound ways. His life serves as a reminder that even those outside the primary covenantal line hold an integral place in God's overarching plan, demonstrating that every lineage has a purpose and contribution within the divine narrative. The impact of Ishmael's descendants on Arab traditions extends into modern times, with stories, customs, and values that have endured for millennia. From the importance of familial loyalty to the reverence for hospitality, Ishmael's influence is woven into the fabric of Arab identity. His legacy embodies the strength and unity that arise from overcoming challenges, serving as an enduring reminder of the blessings that God can bring forth from any life, regardless of its circumstances. Despite the initial rivalry and complex relationship between Ishmael and Isaac, their story ultimately moves toward reconciliation, providing a powerful example of unity despite differences. As recorded in Genesis 25:9, both Ishmael and Isaac come together to bury their father, Abraham, in the cave of Machpelah. This moment of unity, more than a simple burial, serves as a poignant reminder of their shared heritage and the strength of familial bonds that can bridge even the deepest divides. The significance of this act reaches beyond the lives of these two brothers. Abraham's burial, carried out by his sons together, symbolizes a possible healing of old wounds and a testament to the ties that transcend human conflict. The event, filled with emotions of loss and respect, represents the profound influence of Abraham's legacy on both of his sons. Despite the divergent paths their lives had taken, Ishmael and Isaac's collaboration in honoring their father demonstrates the strength of shared history and lineage in bridging relational rifts. Throughout their lives, Ishmael and Isaac represented two distinct promises, each blessed by God, but in different ways. Isaac, as the child of the covenant, would carry forward the lineage leading to the formation of Israel. Ishmael, as the father of the Arab tribes, would also fulfill a divine promise, becoming the patriarch of many nations. These differences shaped their lives, but they did not ultimately separate them from their shared purpose as Abraham's sons. Instead, their coming together signifies that, within God's plan, there is room for different callings, each contributing uniquely to His purposes. The themes of rivalry and reconciliation in the relationship between Ishmael and Isaac resonate beyond their immediate lives. Throughout history, their descendants would engage in interactions that reflect both the potential for division and the hope for unity. The tensions that would later arise between Jews and Arabs are complex and rooted in historical, cultural, and religious differences. But the story of Ishmael and Isaac offers a glimpse of reconciliation, a moment when shared heritage prevails over division. This ancestral connection serves as a foundation that reminds us of the potential for healing and cooperation amidst differences. The significance of Ishmael and Isaac's shared moment also illuminates the importance of family bonds and forgiveness within biblical narratives. The Bible repeatedly emphasizes themes of restoration, calling believers to seek unity and peace with one another. Ishmael and Isaac's reunion underscores that even amidst familial discord, moments of understanding and respect can be reached. Their reunion at Abraham's burial suggests that family connections, especially when rooted in shared faith, can pave the way for reconciliation even after years of separation. In the broader biblical context, this story echoes God's desire for harmony and peace among His people. The Old and New Testaments both speak of reconciliation as an essential part of faith, urging believers to resolve conflicts, forgive one another, and work toward unity. Jesus Himself emphasized this message, urging His followers to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:44. The peace between Ishmael and Isaac at the end of their father's life symbolizes this divine ideal, showing that reconciliation is not only possible but also a reflection of God's greater vision for humanity. Today, the descendants of Ishmael and Isaac continue to interact in ways that reflect the challenges and opportunities for unity. The story of their reconciliation calls us to remember the shared heritage between Jews and Arabs, encouraging us to look beyond conflict and toward the potential for peace. As contemporary issues echo ancient struggles, the example of Ishmael and Isaac coming together offers a timeless reminder that, despite differences, there is always the hope of unity. This legacy of reconciliation is one that transcends religious and cultural boundaries, resonating with believers of all backgrounds. Ishmael and Isaac's story illustrates that, within God's plan, reconciliation is not only desirable but achievable. Their lives stand as a testament to the power of family, faith, and forgiveness, challenging each generation to seek paths toward understanding and peace. Through their reunion, Ishmael and Isaac remind us that the ties that bind us are stronger than those that divide, urging us to strive for reconciliation in our own lives. After Abraham's passing and the moment of unity with his brother Isaac, Ishmael continued on a path that would fulfill the promises God had made to him. Genesis 25:12-16 tells us that Ishmael fathered 12 sons who became tribal leaders of their own clans. These descendants would go on to form the backbone of Arab lineage, a legacy that would shape the cultural and social landscape of the Middle East for centuries to come. The 12 tribes of Ishmael illustrate the fulfillment of God's promise, not only to Ishmael, but to Abraham. Each son represented a unique tribe with distinct traditions, values, and customs. Spread across a vast region, these tribes became known for their strength, resilience, and adaptability in a challenging environment. Ishmael's descendants learned to thrive in the desert, a land often seen as inhospitable but filled with hidden resources and beauty. Ishmael, shaped by his own life of resilience and survival, passed on these qualities to his descendants, who would become skilled in navigation, trade, and the art of living harmoniously with the natural world around them. Ishmael's lineage thus symbolizes both the diversity and unity that characterizes Arab heritage. His descendants maintained a nomadic lifestyle, moving across expansive deserts and becoming integral to the region's economy through trade. The name Ishmaelite became associated with a strong, resourceful people. Their lifestyle and culture would come to embody qualities of endurance, self-reliance, and community. This life in the desert became more than a mere existence. It was an identity and an enduring connection to Ishmael's experiences and his unique bond with God. From a spiritual perspective, Ishmael's legacy offers profound insights into God's inclusive nature. Although Ishmael was not the child of the covenant through whom Israel would arise, God's promise to him was no less significant. His destiny was blessed, and his story was one of resilience and strength, an encouragement to generations of his descendants. This recognition of Ishmael as a figure in God's grand narrative shows that divine favor is not limited to a single lineage or covenant, but can extend to many, honoring the diversity of human experience within God's broader plan. Over time, Ishmael's descendants would also become connected to other peoples and cultures. Their interactions with Israelites and others in the region created a network of relationships that shaped the political and social history of the ancient world. The significance of Ishmael's lineage in biblical history is seen in their appearances throughout the Old Testament, where the Ishmaelites are often noted for their nomadic lifestyle and unique place in the desert region. Through these connections, Ishmael's legacy continued to weave into the broader narrative of God's people. The story of Ishmael and his descendants serves as a testament to God's provision and faithfulness. It reinforces the biblical principle that God does not overlook anyone, regardless of their background or circumstances. His promises to Abraham extended to Ishmael, acknowledging his role and the blessings God had planned for his life. This inclusion demonstrates that God values each life and fulfills his promises in diverse ways, weaving each into a greater story of his creation. For modern believers, Ishmael's legacy presents a reminder that God's grace and promises reach beyond boundaries of status or privilege. While the line of Isaac was chosen for the direct fulfillment of the covenant, Ishmael's life and lineage were no less precious in God's sight. His life story, woven with challenges and blessings, demonstrates that God's blessings can appear in unexpected ways, often shaping lives through resilience, strength, and faithfulness. The life of Ishmael, marked by both struggles and divine promises, continues to inspire those who feel on the margins or believe their lives do not align with traditional expectations. His journey reveals that, in God's view, every story matters, and every person has a purpose. Ishmael's legacy encourages those facing hardship to persevere, recognizing that God's plans encompass a wider scope than we can see, and that his promises hold steadfast even through adversity. Ultimately, Ishmael's story illustrates the timeless nature of God's faithfulness, showing that each person has a unique role within God's greater design. Through Ishmael, we witness how God's promises unfold, even in the most challenging of circumstances, and how they continue to impact the world today. His legacy is one of survival, hope, and the knowledge that God remains true to his word, providing strength and purpose to those who seek him. As time passed, the distinct paths of Isaac and Ishmael converged once more, demonstrating the potential for unity despite differences. Though separated by life choices, cultural backgrounds, and the divergent promises spoken over their lives, the two brothers came together in a poignant moment of reconciliation to bury their father, Abraham. This act, recorded in Genesis 25:9, serves as a profound reminder of the power of family and the bonds that can transcend rivalry and bitterness. Abraham's burial in the cave of Machpelah is more than a family duty. It symbolizes the shared heritage and mutual respect between Isaac and Ishmael. Despite the misunderstandings, rivalries, and struggles that marked their early years, both men stood united in honoring their father, showing that even amidst conflict, family ties can endure and lead to healing. This moment of unity between Isaac and Ishmael encapsulates the possibility of reconciliation, even when long-standing divisions exist. Their coming together at Abraham's burial marks a significant point in the biblical narrative, highlighting that both sons, despite their different destinies, were valued and loved by God. Isaac, as the child of the covenant, was to carry forward the promise that God made to Abraham, becoming the direct ancestor of Israel. Ishmael, on the other hand, was blessed to become the father of many nations, fulfilling God's commitment to Abraham that he would be the father of many. This joint heritage underscores the vast scope of God's plans, wherein multiple lineages, tribes, and nations are woven into the story of his people. The unity between Isaac and Ishmael at this moment also foreshadows God's ultimate desire for harmony among humanity. This idea of unity in diversity remains a powerful message throughout the Bible, where God's blessings are often shown to be inclusive, reaching beyond one lineage to encompass all nations. Although Isaac and Ishmael would found different tribes, their reunion at Machpelah reflects the possibility of peace and reconciliation, even among groups with deep-seated historical tensions. This unity can be seen as a foreshadowing of Christ's message of peace and reconciliation. The Bible later speaks to this in Ephesians 2:14, where Paul writes that Christ is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. This principle of reconciliation is not limited to individuals, but extends to nations, cultures, and people groups. Through Christ, God calls all people to unity, reminding us that our shared humanity and faith in God can bridge even the most profound divides. For Isaac and Ishmael, their time of reconciliation also highlights the complexity of human relationships and the power of forgiveness. The rivalry and pain of their early years could have driven an unbridgeable wedge between them. However, through their shared love for their father and their heritage, they found a common ground that allowed them to honor their father's memory together. This act serves as an example for all believers, reminding us that forgiveness and reconciliation are possible, even in the face of deep-seated differences. In today's world, the story of Isaac and Ishmael remains relevant, serving as a reminder that family, cultural identity, and faith can be intertwined in ways that shape our experiences. This shared heritage between Isaac and Ishmael also underscores the importance of approaching historical divisions with understanding and respect. By reflecting on their story, we see that there is potential for peace in even the most challenging relationships, and that God's grace can heal wounds that may seem impossible to mend. Moreover, the legacy of Isaac and Ishmael reflects God's commitment to his promises and his ability to work through different people and cultures to fulfill his purposes. Each brother was part of God's grand design, with their descendants playing essential roles in shaping the biblical world. Isaac's line would carry the covenant that led to the birth of the Israelite nation and ultimately to Christ. Ishmael's lineage would spread across the Middle East, establishing tribes that would influence the region for centuries. As we consider the legacy of Isaac and Ishmael, we are reminded that God's plans often extend beyond human limitations and perspectives. His promises are comprehensive and inclusive, reaching out to different people groups, nations, and cultures. Just as Isaac and Ishmael both carried Abraham's legacy in their unique ways, we are each called to honor God's purpose in our lives, even as we celebrate our shared heritage and humanity. The unity of Isaac and Ishmael at Abraham's burial reveals that, in the eyes of God, reconciliation is not only possible, but desired. It invites us to seek peace in our relationships, to approach our differences with grace, and to remember that family, faith, and love can overcome any barrier. Through Isaac and Ishmael, we see that even in complex situations, God's hand is present, guiding us toward unity and reminding us of the strength found in shared heritage and reconciliation. As the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael spread throughout the ancient world, the legacies of these two brothers continued to shape the cultures, religions, and relationships of countless generations. While Isaac became the patriarch of the Israelites, from whom Jesus Christ would come, Ishmael's lineage gave rise to the Arab nations, which would later be associated with the spread of Islam. Their lives and descendants represent two prominent lineages that share a common ancestry yet have distinct paths and purposes. Over time, the relationship between Isaac's and Ishmael's descendants evolved, sometimes marked by peace and collaboration, while at other times fraught with tension and rivalry. This dynamic reflects the broader complexities of human relationships, where shared roots do not always guarantee harmony, and differing identities and purposes can lead to division. However, their story is a reminder of God's sovereignty, revealing that He works through both unity and division to fulfill His divine purposes. In the centuries that followed, the interactions between these lineages would influence not only religious beliefs, but also cultural and geopolitical landscapes across the Middle East and beyond. For many, Isaac represents the promise fulfilled through Israel, while Ishmael embodies a parallel legacy that contributes to the rich tapestry of faiths and cultures in the region. This dual heritage is often celebrated, yet has also fueled misunderstandings and disputes, as both Jews and Arabs claim connections to Abraham, each seeing their lineage as significant to God's plan. The Bible does not present Isaac and Ishmael's legacies in isolation. Rather, it emphasizes the broader role of both in God's narrative. Through their shared ancestor, Abraham, we are reminded that God's blessings were intended for all nations. Genesis 12:3 proclaims that through Abraham, all peoples on earth will be blessed, affirming God's desire for unity and blessing across humanity. This promise underscores the potential for reconciliation between Isaac and Ishmael's descendants, pointing to a divine plan where all nations are ultimately united under God. One striking aspect of the legacy of Isaac and Ishmael is the spiritual connection that each lineage maintains with Abraham, the father of faith. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Abraham holds a foundational place as a figure of faith, obedience, and devotion to God. Both Isaac and Ishmael reflect Abraham's legacy of trust in God, and both lines have carried forward this spiritual heritage, albeit in distinct ways. This shared reverence for Abraham offers a unique bridge between these traditions, serving as a reminder of the potential for unity amidst difference. Contemporary conflicts, particularly those related to Israel and Palestine, reflect the deep-seated tensions between these lineages, but these conflicts are not the final word on their relationship. In light of God's covenant with Abraham, both Isaac and Ishmael's descendants hold a place within his larger plan for humanity. The hope of reconciliation between them echoes through the prophetic vision in Revelation, where a great multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and language stands together before God's throne. Revelation 7:9. This image encapsulates the ultimate goal of unity, where all divisions fade in the presence of the Creator. The lasting legacy of Isaac and Ishmael also teaches us about the challenges of reconciling faith with the realities of human nature. Both brothers were heirs to Abraham's faith, yet their different mothers, cultural contexts, and personal experiences led to a divergence that has affected generations. This story reminds us that faith often exists within the complexity of human relationships and that God's promises can unfold in diverse and sometimes unexpected ways. Looking at the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael today, we see the impact of their legacy on a global scale. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three monotheistic religions that share roots in Abraham, each hold unique perspectives on faith, identity, and God's relationship with humanity. These faiths, while distinct, all promote values of compassion, justice, and a commitment to seek God. In an era marked by division, the legacy of Isaac and Ishmael encourages us to seek understanding, to appreciate the beauty of diversity, and to pursue unity under God's sovereignty. The biblical narrative also teaches that God's promises extend beyond human understanding and control. Isaac and Ishmael's stories reflect God's commitment to his people, whether through the covenant line of Israel or the blessings granted to Ishmael and his descendants. This inclusivity shows that God's love and purpose are not limited to one group, but are meant to reach all nations, regardless of their background or heritage. As followers of God, we are called to embrace this vision of unity and peace. In a world divided by ethnic, cultural, and religious boundaries, the story of Isaac and Ishmael challenges us to look beyond our differences and to seek common ground in our shared ancestry, values, and faith in God. In Romans 12:18, we are reminded, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. This exhortation encourages us to pursue peace, recognizing that unity does not require uniformity, but rather a mutual respect and understanding. Reflecting on the legacy of Isaac and Ishmael, we are invited to reconsider our own roles as peacemakers, bridge builders, and bearers of hope. Their story, though rooted in conflict, ultimately offers a message of reconciliation and faith. Through their lives, God's desire for all people to live in harmony becomes clear, reminding us that each of us has a role to play in fulfilling His plan for unity. In closing, the story of Isaac and Ishmael remains a powerful narrative of faith, resilience, and reconciliation. Their lives and legacies remind us that, despite our divisions, we share a common bond as children of God, heirs to His promises, and participants in His divine story. May we, like Isaac and Ishmael, find ways to honor this heritage, to embrace the diversity within God's family, and to work toward a future where all nations come together in worship and peace. Thank you for watching this journey through the stories of Isaac and Ishmael, and may God's blessing be upon you as you carry forward the lessons of reconciliation, faith, and unity.